Sometimes a single moment can change everything. Sometimes it takes just one person believing in you, when the whole world seems against you. William never imagined that a routine day would become the turning point of his entire life, or that his mother's simple words from years ago would save him from disaster. What started as an ordinary morning would end with a revelation that shook everyone involved, proving that respect and kindness are the most powerful forces in the world. William adjusted his worn jacket as he walked through the morning streets, his footsteps echoing against the concrete sidewalk. The early sun cast long shadows between the buildings, and the city was just beginning to wake up. At 25, he had learned to navigate life with quiet determination, despite the challenges that seemed to follow him wherever he went. His appearance often drew unwanted attention. His clothes, though clean, showed signs of wear. His shoes had been resoled twice, and his jacket had a small patch near the elbow that his mother had sewn with careful stitches. But William carried himself with dignity, remembering the lessons his mother had taught him since childhood about treating everyone with respect, regardless of how they treated him. On this particular morning, William was headed to a job interview at a prestigious office building downtown. He had spent weeks preparing for this opportunity, studying the company, practicing his responses, and hoping that his qualifications would speak louder than any preconceptions people might have about him. The position was for a junior analyst role, something that could finally give him the stable career he had been working toward for years. As he approached the gleaming glass building, William took a deep breath. The structure towered above him, its reflective surface catching the morning light. Through the large windows, he could see people in expensive suits moving purposefully through the lobby. This was his chance to prove himself, to show that he belonged in this world of success and opportunity. The automatic doors whooshed open as he approached, and William stepped into the marble-floored lobby. The space was impressive, with high ceilings, modern art on the walls, and the soft sound of classical music playing in the background. A few people sat in comfortable leather chairs, some reading newspapers, others typing on laptops. The atmosphere was professional and polished. William walked toward the reception desk, his interview confirmation letter folded neatly in his jacket pocket. He had arrived 30 minutes early, knowing that punctuality would make a good first impression. The receptionist, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, smiled at him as he approached. "Good morning," William said politely. "I have an interview scheduled with Mr. Harrison at 9:30. My name is William Thompson." The receptionist checked her computer screen and nodded. "Yes, I see you here. Please have a seat, and I'll let Mr. Pereza." "Harrison, know you've arrived. He's currently in a meeting, but it should wrap up shortly." William thanked her and found a seat in the waiting area. He used the time to review his resume once more and mentally rehearse his key points. This job could change everything for him. The salary was more than he had ever earned, and the company offered excellent benefits and opportunities for advancement. As he sat there, William noticed the security guard near the entrance. The man was middle-aged, with graying hair and a stern expression. He wore a crisp uniform and stood with the posture of someone who took his job seriously. The guard's eyes occasionally swept across the lobby, observing everyone who entered and exited the building. 20 minutes passed, and William remained seated, patient and composed. He watched as other people came and went, some clearly employees heading to their offices, others visitors like himself. The lobby maintained its quiet, professional atmosphere, with only the soft murmur of conversations and the occasional sound of heels clicking across the marble floor. Suddenly, the security guard began walking in William's direction. His expression was serious, almost suspicious, and his eyes were fixed directly on William. Other people in the lobby began to notice, their conversations quieting as they turned to watch what was happening. The guard stopped directly in front of William, his presence imposing and unmistakable. "Excuse me," he said, his voice carrying across the quiet lobby. "I need to see some identification." William looked up, surprised by the request. Around the lobby, conversations had completely stopped. Everyone was now watching the interaction, their attention focused on this unexpected confrontation. William could feel the weight of their stares, the way people were whispering to each other and pointing in his direction. "Of course," William replied calmly, reaching into his jacket pocket. "I'm here for a job interview." The guard's expression didn't change. "I need to see ID, and I need to know what you're really doing here." The word really hung in the air like an accusation. William felt the familiar sting of judgment, the assumption that he didn't belong in this upscale environment. But instead of reacting with anger or frustration, he remembered his mother's voice from years past, gentle but firm. "William, when people treat you poorly, you treat them with respect. When they make assumptions about you, you prove them wrong with your character. Never let someone else's ignorance make you forget who you are." William maintained his calm demeanor as he produced his driver's license and the interview confirmation letter. "Here's my identification, and this is my confirmation for the interview with Mr. Harrison." The security guard barely glanced at the documents before handing them back. "I'm going to need you to wait outside while I verify this." "I understand your need to maintain security," William said respectfully, "but I've already checked in with the receptionist, and my interview is in 10 minutes. Perhaps you could verify the information while I wait here." The guard's jaw tightened. "No, I need you to step outside. Now." The lobby had become completely silent. Every person was watching this interaction unfold, and William could feel their eyes on him. Some looked uncomfortable with what they were witnessing, while others seemed to accept it as normal. The receptionist looked concerned but remained behind her desk, uncertain of how to intervene. William stood up slowly, maintaining his dignity despite the humiliating situation. "I'll wait outside, but I hope this can be resolved quickly. This interview is very important to me." As he walked toward the doors, William heard whispers behind him. "Why did they make him leave?" someone asked. "He seemed polite enough," another person murmured. But no one spoke up. No one challenged what was happening. Outside the building, William stood on the sidewalk, checking his watch nervously. His interview was supposed to start in 8 minutes, and he had no idea how long this verification process would take. He thought about his mother, about all the sacrifices she had made to help him get his education, about the pride she would feel if he got this job. The morning sun felt warmer now, and the street was getting busier with people heading to work. William watched through the glass doors as the security guard spoke with the receptionist, gesturing in his direction. Other people in the lobby continued to watch, their morning routines interrupted by this unusual drama. Minutes ticked by, and William's anxiety grew. This was exactly the kind of opportunity he had been working toward his entire life. He had the qualifications, the education, and the determination. But now, standing outside the building where his future might be decided, he wondered if any of that would matter. The security guard finally approached the doors, but instead of inviting William back inside, he stepped outside to speak with him. "I've spoken with the company, and they're going to reschedule your interview." William felt his heart sink. "Reschedule? But why?" "I have all the proper documentation, and I'm here on time. They just think it would be better to handle this at a different time," the guard replied, his tone suggesting the conversation was over. William looked through the glass doors and saw people in the lobby going about their business, the disruption already forgotten. The receptionist was back to answering phones, and the comfortable atmosphere had returned. But for William, everything had changed. "When will it be rescheduled?" he asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. "They'll call you," the guard said dismissively, turning to walk back inside. William stood there for a moment longer, processing what had just happened. He had been turned away not because he lacked qualifications, not because he was late or unprepared, but because someone had made assumptions about him based on his appearance. The injustice of it burned in his chest, but his mother's words echoed in his mind again. He walked slowly down the street, his mind racing with emotions. Disappointment, frustration, and anger all competed for attention, but underneath it all was a deep sadness. This wasn't the first time something like this had happened, and he feared it wouldn't be the last. As William made his way home, he passed other office buildings, other opportunities that might be closed to him for reasons that had nothing to do with his abilities or character. The city continued around him, indifferent to his struggle, but he carried within him the strength his mother had instilled and the knowledge that his worth wasn't determined by how others chose to see him. The morning that had started with such promise had ended in disappointment. But William's story was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning, and the events of this day would soon lead to revelations that would surprise everyone involved, including the security guard who had made such a costly assumption. 3 days passed before William received the phone call he had been expecting, though not in the way he had hoped. The voice on the other end was polite but distant, informing him that the company had decided to move forward with other candidates. No explanation was given. No feedback provided. Just a brief thank you for his interest. William sat in his small apartment, the phone still in his hand, staring out the window at the busy street below. This was the third promising opportunity that had slipped away in similar circumstances over the past year. Each time he had been qualified, prepared, and professional, but somehow things always went wrong at the crucial moment. His mother called that evening, as she did every few days. Sarah Thompson had raised William as a single mother, working 2 jobs to make sure he could get a good education. Now in her 60s, she still worked as a hospital administrator, managing her department with the same grace and dignity she had taught her son. "How did the interview go, honey?" she asked, her voice warm with anticipation. William hesitated, not wanting to disappoint her again, but he had never been able to lie to his mother. "It didn't go as planned, Mom. They decided not to hire me." There was a pause on the other end of the line. His mother had been through this journey with him, celebrating his achievements and supporting him through the setbacks. She knew how hard he had worked to get where he was, and she shared his frustration with the barriers he continued to face. "Tell me what happened," she said gently. William recounted the events at the office building, describing the security guard's behavior and the way he had been treated. As he spoke, he could hear his mother's breathing change, the way it did when she was trying to control her emotions. "William," she said when he finished, "you remember what I've always told you about treating people with respect, no matter how they treat you." "And I did. I was polite and professional the whole time." "Good. That's exactly right. Because your character is not determined by how others behave toward you. It's determined by how you choose to behave, regardless of the circumstances." They talked for another hour, with his mother sharing stories from her own experiences and reminding him that persistence and integrity would eventually pay off. By the time they hung up, William felt renewed strength to continue his job search. The next morning, William decided to take a different approach. Instead of focusing only on large corporations, he began researching smaller companies, startups, and organizations that might be more interested in his skills than his appearance. He spent hours online customizing cover letters and applications, determined not to let the recent setback define his future. As he worked at his laptop in a local coffee shop, William noticed a commotion outside on the street. Through the window, he saw a crowd gathering around what appeared to be a car accident. Without hesitation, he closed his laptop and went outside to see if he could help. The scene was chaotic. A delivery truck had collided with a small sedan at the intersection, and both drivers appeared to be injured. The sedan's driver, an elderly woman, was trapped in her car and clearly in distress. The truck driver was sitting on the curb holding his head and looking dazed. Other bystanders stood around uncertainly, some taking photos with their phones, others calling 911. But William immediately went to the elderly woman's car, carefully assessing the situation. His mother had taught him basic first aid years ago, and he had taken additional courses in college. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" he called through the partially open window. "My name is William. Help is on the way, but I'm going to stay with you until they arrive." The woman turned her head slightly, fear evident in her eyes. "I can't move my legs," she whispered. "I'm scared." "That's okay," William said calmly. "You're going to be all right. I want you to try to stay still and focus on breathing slowly. Can you tell me your name?" "Margaret," she replied, her voice shaking. "That's a beautiful name, Margaret. I'm going to stay right here with you. Can you feel my hand?" He had reached through the window to gently hold her hand, providing comfort and reassurance. For the next 15 minutes until the ambulance arrived, William stayed by Margaret's side. He kept her talking, helping her stay calm and alert. He coordinated with the other bystanders to direct traffic around the accident scene and made sure someone was also checking on the truck driver. When the paramedics arrived, they immediately began working to extract Margaret from the car. William stepped back to give them room, but remained nearby in case they needed any information about her condition. The lead paramedic, a woman in her 40s, glanced at William with appreciation. "You did good work here," she said. Keeping her calm probably prevented her from going into shock. Are you medical personnel? No, William replied. Just someone who wanted to help. As Margaret was being loaded into the ambulance, she called out to William. Young man, please, what's your name again? William Thompson, he replied, walking closer to the ambulance. William Thompson, she repeated, as if committing it to memory. Thank you for taking care of me. The ambulance pulled away, and the crowd began to disperse. William helped direct traffic until the police arrived to manage the scene, then quietly returned to the coffee shop to continue his job search. He didn't think much about the incident afterward, viewing it simply as what any decent person would do in similar circumstances. Over the following weeks, William continued his job hunt with renewed determination. He had several phone interviews and even a few in-person meetings. Some went well, others less so, but he maintained his professionalism and optimism throughout the process. His mother's lessons about character and persistence continued to guide him. One afternoon, while William was at the public library using their computers to research companies, he received an unexpected phone call. The caller identified herself as Mrs. Elizabeth Harrison, and she asked if William had a few minutes to talk. I'm calling about an incident that happened a few weeks ago, she explained. There was a car accident downtown, and you helped an elderly woman who was trapped in her vehicle. William remembered the incident immediately. Yes, I was there. Is she all right? I've been wondering how she was doing. She's doing much better, thanks in part to your help that day. Mr. Thompson, the woman you helped is my mother, Margaret Harrison. She's been asking about you since the accident, wanting to properly thank the young man who stayed with her. William was touched that Margaret had remembered him and taken the time to track him down. Please tell her that no thanks are necessary. I'm just glad she's recovering well. Harrison continued. I was hoping we might meet in person. My mother would very much like to see you again, and I have to admit I'm curious to meet the person who showed such kindness to her. They arranged to meet at a small cafe near the hospital where Margaret was completing her physical therapy. William arrived a few minutes early and chose a quiet table near the window. When Mrs. Harrison arrived, he recognized her immediately from her confident bearing and professional appearance. Elizabeth Harrison was a woman in her early 50s, impeccably dressed and carrying herself with the authority of someone accustomed to leadership. She spotted William immediately and approached his table with a warm smile. William Thompson? She asked, extending her hand. I'm Elizabeth Harrison. Thank you so much for agreeing to meet with me. As they shook hands, William noticed something familiar about her but couldn't place it. They ordered coffee and began talking about the accident and Margaret's recovery. Elizabeth shared how frightened her mother had been and how much William's presence had meant to her during those terrifying minutes. She talks about you constantly, Elizabeth said with a smile. She says you have the kindest eyes and the most gentle voice. She felt completely safe with you there. William was moved by Margaret's words. I just did what anyone would do in that situation. No, Elizabeth said firmly. Not anyone. Most people stood around taking pictures or just watching. You immediately went to help, and you stayed with her the entire time. That says something important about your character. As they continued talking, William found himself comfortable with Elizabeth's straightforward manner and genuine appreciation. She asked about his background, his education, and his current situation. When he mentioned that he was looking for work, she listened with interest. What kind of work are you seeking? She asked. William described his qualifications and the type of positions he had been pursuing. As he spoke, he noticed a change in Elizabeth's expression, a look of recognition that seemed to surprise her. William, she said slowly, forgive me for asking, but did you recently interview at Harrison Financial Group? The office building downtown with the marble lobby? William's heart skipped a beat. The name Harrison suddenly clicked into place. Harrison Financial Group. Are you related to Mr. Harrison there? I am Mr. Harrison, Elizabeth said quietly, or rather, Miss Harrison. I'm the CEO of Harrison Financial Group. And if I'm not mistaken, you were supposed to interview with me a few weeks ago for our junior analyst position. The coffee shop seemed to fade around them as the implications of this revelation settled in. William stared at Elizabeth, processing the connection between the woman whose mother he had helped and the interview that had been derailed by the security guard's assumptions. I was there, William said carefully. But I was asked to leave by security before the interview could take place. Elizabeth's expression grew serious. "Tell me exactly what happened." William recounted the events of that morning, describing the security guard's behavior and how he had been forced to wait outside while his interview time passed. As he spoke, he watched Elizabeth's face change from curiosity to concern to something that looked like controlled anger. "Mr. Thompson," she said when he finished, "I owe you a profound apology. What happened to you that day was completely unacceptable and goes against every value my company claims to represent." William could see that she was genuinely distressed by what she had learned. "I appreciate that, Ms. Harrison, but you weren't responsible for what happened." "Actually, I was," she replied. "It's my company, my building, my responsibility to ensure that everyone who enters is treated with respect and dignity. The fact that one of my employees judged you based on your appearance and denied you the opportunity you had earned is inexcusable." They sat in silence for a moment, both processing the strange turn of events that had brought them together. Elizabeth was clearly wrestling with the knowledge that her company had failed someone who had shown such kindness to her mother. "William," she said finally, "I can't undo what happened that day, but I can ensure that it never happens again. More importantly, I can offer you the interview that you were denied, if you're still interested in the position." William looked at this powerful woman who was offering him a second chance, not because of his qualifications or his resume, but because she had seen his character in action. It was exactly the kind of opportunity his mother had always told him would come if he remained true to his values and treated others with respect. "I'm very interested," he said, "but I want to be clear that I don't expect any special treatment because of what happened with your mother. I want to earn this job based on my abilities." Elizabeth smiled for the first time since learning about the security guard incident. "William, the fact that you would say that only confirms what I already suspected about your character. But don't worry about special treatment. If you get this job, it will be because you're the best candidate. However, I can promise you that this time, you'll get a fair chance to prove it." The second interview was scheduled for the following Monday morning. This time, Elizabeth Harrison herself would conduct the interview, and she had personally spoken with the building's security supervisor to ensure there would be no repetition of the previous incident. William spent the weekend preparing, reviewing his materials and practicing his responses, but also reflecting on the extraordinary circumstances that had brought him to this point. His mother was overjoyed when he told her about the connection with Margaret and Elizabeth Harrison. "You see, William," she said during their phone call, "this is exactly what I've always told you. When you do the right thing, when you treat people with kindness and respect, good things come back to you. Maybe not immediately, maybe not in the way you expect, but they do come back." William arrived at the Harrison Financial Group building 30 minutes early, just as he had before, but this time, the experience was completely different. The security guard who greeted him was professional and courteous, checking his identification with a smile and directing him to the reception desk. The same receptionist from his previous visit recognized him and welcomed him warmly. "Miss Harrison is expecting you, Mr. Thompson. Please have a seat and I'll let her know you're here." As William waited in the familiar lobby, he noticed how different everything felt when he was treated with respect. The marble floors and classical music were the same, but the atmosphere felt welcoming rather than intimidating. Other people in the waiting area nodded politely when they made eye contact, creating an environment of mutual courtesy. Elizabeth Harrison appeared precisely on time, dressed in a sharp business suit and carrying herself with the confidence of someone who had built her success through hard work and smart decisions. She approached William with a genuine smile and a firm handshake. "William, thank you for coming back. I know this situation is unusual, but I'm grateful for the chance to meet with you properly." She led him to her office on the 23rd floor, a spacious room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The office was elegantly furnished but not ostentatious, with family photos and business awards displayed alongside books and industry publications. It was the workspace of someone who took her responsibilities seriously while never forgetting what truly mattered. "Please, have a seat," Elizabeth said, gesturing to a comfortable chair across from her desk. "Before we begin the formal interview, I want to address what happened during your first visit." William nodded, appreciating her directness. "I understand that you've already apologized, Miss Harrison, and I accept that apology. I'm here because I believe this is a great company with excellent opportunities. Your graciousness in this situation only reinforces my impression of your character, Elizabeth replied. But I want you to know that changes have been made. I've implemented new training protocols for all security personnel, emphasizing that our building should be welcoming to everyone who has legitimate business here. The guard who treated you inappropriately has been reassigned to duties where he won't interact with visitors. William appreciated her thoroughness in addressing the problem, but he was eager to focus on the opportunity ahead. I'm grateful for those changes, but I'm most interested in showing you what I can contribute to your team. Elizabeth smiled at his professionalism. Then let's begin. Tell me about your background and why you're interested in working for Harrison Financial Group. For the next hour, they discussed William's education, his previous work experience, and his analytical skills. Elizabeth asked challenging questions about financial markets, risk assessment, and problem-solving scenarios. William responded thoughtfully and confidently, drawing on his education and the practical knowledge he had gained through internships and part-time positions. As the interview progressed, Elizabeth found herself impressed not just with William's technical knowledge, but with his thoughtful approach to complex problems. He demonstrated the kind of analytical thinking that would be valuable in their junior analyst role. But more importantly, he showed the integrity and judgment that would make him a strong, long-term addition to their team. William, Elizabeth said as the formal portion of the interview concluded, "Your qualifications are excellent, and your responses have been very impressive. But I have to ask about something that's been on my mind since we met at the cafe." William waited, curious about her question. "When you helped my mother after the accident, you had no idea who she was or who I was. You had no expectation of reward or recognition. You simply saw someone who needed help and you provided it. In my experience, that kind of instinctive compassion is rare and valuable. How do you think that perspective would influence your work here?" William considered the question carefully. "I think that understanding people, whether they're clients, colleagues, or anyone else we interact with, makes us better at everything we do. In financial services, we're not just working with numbers and markets. We're working with people's dreams, their security, their future. If we lose sight of that human element, we lose sight of what really matters." Elizabeth nodded, clearly pleased with his response. "That's exactly the kind of perspective we value here. William, I'd like to offer you the junior analyst position, if you're interested in accepting it." William felt a surge of excitement and relief, but he maintained his composure. "I'm very interested. Harrison, thank you for this opportunity." They spent the next few minutes discussing salary, benefits, and start date. The compensation package was generous, including health insurance, retirement contributions, and opportunities for professional development. William would begin the following Monday, giving him a week to prepare for his new role. As they concluded their meeting, Elizabeth walked William to the elevator. "There's one more thing I'd like you to know," she said as they waited for the elevator to arrive. "This afternoon, I'm meeting with my mother for lunch. She's been asking about you constantly since I told her we were connected. Would you be willing to join us? She'd love to thank you in person." William was touched by the invitation. "I'd be honored to see Margaret again and to know that she's recovering well." They met at a quiet restaurant, near Margaret's physical therapy clinic. When William arrived, he saw an elderly woman with bright eyes and a warm smile waiting at a corner table. Despite her recent accident, Margaret Harrison carried herself with dignity and grace. She was clearly Elizabeth's mother, sharing the same intelligent eyes and strong presence. "William!" Margaret exclaimed as he approached the table. "There's my guardian angel." William took her extended hand gently. "It's wonderful to see you looking so well, Mrs. Harrison. How are you feeling?" "Much better, thanks to you," she replied. "The doctors said that staying calm during those first critical minutes probably prevented me from going into shock." "Elizabeth tells me you have a new job with her company?" Over lunch, the three of them shared stories and got to know each other better. Margaret talked about her late husband, who had built Harrison Financial Group from a small investment firm into a major regional player. Elizabeth shared her vision for the company's future and her commitment to maintaining the values her father had established. William told them about his mother and the lessons she had taught him about treating everyone with respect. She always said that how we treat people when we don't have to be kind says everything about who we really are. Your mother sounds like a wise woman, Margaret said. I'd love to meet her someday. Actually, Elizabeth interjected, we're having a company retreat next month at a resort outside the city. It's a chance for all our employees to get to know each other better and for their families to meet. Would your mother be interested in joining us? William was amazed by the generosity of the invitation. I think she'd love that. She's always been interested in meeting the people I work with. As lunch concluded, Margaret took William's hand again. You know, dear, I've been thinking about that day of the accident. You could have just called 910 and walked away. You could have assumed someone else would help, but you stayed with me, you kept me calm, you made sure I wasn't alone. That's not something you can teach in school. That comes from the heart. Elizabeth nodded in agreement. William, I hired you because you're qualified for the job, but I'm excited to work with you because of who you are as a person. In business, technical skills can be taught, but character cannot. You've already shown that you have both. William's first week at Harrison Financial Group exceeded all his expectations. His colleagues were welcoming and professional, eager to help him learn the company's systems and procedures. Elizabeth had assigned him to work with several different teams during his first month, allowing him to understand various aspects of the business and find where his skills could be most valuable. The work itself was challenging and engaging. William found himself analyzing market trends, preparing reports for clients, and contributing to investment recommendations. His educational background had prepared him well, but the practical application of his knowledge was exciting in ways he hadn't anticipated. More importantly, William discovered that his approach to client relationships set him apart from many of his colleagues. While others focused primarily on the financial aspects of their recommendations, William took time to understand each client's personal situation and long-term goals. His genuine interest in helping people achieve their dreams translated into stronger client relationships and better outcomes. Elizabeth noticed this quality immediately and began involving William in meetings with some of their most important clients. His ability to explain complex financial concepts in understandable terms, combined with his obvious sincerity, made clients feel comfortable and confident in the company's recommendations. 3 months into his employment, William received his first performance review. Elizabeth was thorough in her feedback, praising his technical skills, his client relationships, and his contributions to the team. William, she said as they concluded the review, I have to tell you that hiring you was one of the best decisions I've made as CEO. Your work has been excellent, but beyond that, you've brought something special to our culture. Your colleagues respect you, clients request to work with you, and you've maintained the integrity and kindness that first impressed me. William was grateful for the recognition, but he was most proud of the fact that he had proven himself through his work rather than through circumstances. Thank you, Miss Harrison. I love working here, and I'm excited about the opportunities ahead. Speaking of opportunities, Elizabeth continued, I'd like to discuss your future with the company. We have several paths for advancement, and I believe you have the potential to take on increasing levels of responsibility. But first, I'd like you to consider representing the company at an industry conference next month. It's a chance to network with professionals from across the region and to present some of the client success stories you've been involved with. The conference was exactly the kind of opportunity William had dreamed about when he first started his career. It represented recognition of his abilities and trust in his judgment. More importantly, it was a chance to share the approach to client service that had been so effective. As William prepared for the conference, he reflected on the journey that had brought him to this point. The humiliation of being turned away from his first interview had led to the chance encounter with Margaret, which had connected him with Elizabeth, and opened doors he never could have imagined. His mother's words echoed in his mind constantly. Treat everyone with respect, maintain your dignity regardless of how others behave, and trust that doing the right thing will eventually lead to good outcomes. These lessons had guided him through the darkest moments of his job search, and continued to shape his approach to his new career. The night before the conference, William called his mother to share his excitement and gratitude. I'm so proud of you, William, she said, her voice full of emotion. But I'm not surprised. You've always had a good heart and a strong work ethic. This success is the result of who you are, not luck or coincidence. Mom, William replied, Everything good that's happened to me can be traced back to the lessons you taught me. When that security guard treated me poorly, I could have responded with anger or bitterness, but I remembered what you always said about treating people with respect even when they don't deserve it. That choice led to everything that followed. At the conference the next day, William presented his client's success stories to an audience of financial professionals. His presentation was well received, but what impressed people most was his genuine passion for helping clients achieve their goals. Several attendees approached him afterward, interested in learning more about his approach and potentially collaborating on future projects. During the networking reception, William found himself in conversation with other young professionals who shared their own stories of overcoming obstacles and building their careers. He realized that his experience, while unique in its details, was part of a larger story about perseverance, character, and the power of treating others with dignity. As the evening concluded, William stood on the hotel balcony overlooking the city lights, thinking about the journey that had brought him here. Less than a year ago, he had been struggling to find opportunities, facing barriers that seemed insurmountable. Now he was a respected member of a successful company, with a bright future ahead, and the satisfaction of knowing he had earned his position through his own efforts and character. The security guard who had judged him based on his appearance could never have imagined that his actions would ultimately lead to this moment. By staying true to his mother's teachings, by treating that guard with respect even while being mistreated, William had set in motion a chain of events that changed his entire life. But perhaps most importantly, William had learned that success built on integrity and compassion was more satisfying than any achievement that came at the expense of others. His mother's simple lesson about treating everyone with respect had not only opened doors for him, but it also made him the kind of person others wanted to work with and support. As he prepared to return home and continue building his career, William carried with him the knowledge that character truly is destiny, and that the choice to respond to adversity with grace and dignity can transform not just individual moments, but entire lives.